Hey everyone, and welcome to the Student Ministry Conversations podcast with your hosts, Russell Martin and Brent Aiken. We are glad you're joining us today, and we hope you find this conversation helpful, insightful, and encouraging as you lead your students in ministry. We want to remind you about our social media. You can find us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook by looking for @TalkStudentMen. And then we also have our website, studentministryconversations.org, where you can find us for all of the episodes, blog posts, and extras that we throw on there. So today we are going to hear a conversation that Russell had with Sammy Kelly. Sammy is a marketing consultant for a company called Digivangelism, and she joins the conversation to talk about engaging students online. Russell, this was your conversation. Can you tell us a little bit more about it?
Yes. Well, we all know that engaging people online through social media was important even before COVID. And one thing the pandemic revealed was just how critical it is not to just post events, but to engage with people through online digital means, whether that's Facebook or your website or TikTok. And so Sammy runs this group called Digivangelism, and they help churches to spread hope through all things digital. And so we talk about strategy and purpose, and we get into some tips that you can use. And we kind of drill down a little bit on TikTok for a while, but I think it's a helpful conversation for youth leaders and really anyone in the church. Oh, and be sure and stay tuned after the conversation because there's a special offer just for our listeners from Sammy and Digivangelism.
Man, that sounds great. Without further ado, here's Russell's conversation with Sammy Kelly.
All right. Well, hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Student Ministries Conversations podcast. And I am your host, Russell Martin. I'm glad you're joining us. And I'm glad you're here for this conversation because we have Sammy. Sammy runs a website, which also a TikTok and also everything else, because she talks about Digivangelism. And so first of all, I think that's a really cute way to do it and a really good branding way to do it. And so, Sammy, can you tell us everything about you in a short time? Tell us how you came up with this idea, what you do, and just kind of give us a really brief intro.
Sure. Thank you, Russell, for inviting me on. It's funny, this isn't the first time we've been found via TikTok and asked to come on a podcast. So very cool to be here. My name is Sammy Kelly. I am the co-owner of Digivangelism, which I lead with Michelle Barra, someone that I met when we were in parish ministry together. I was working at a church and she was council president, jack of all trades, doing a bunch of different things. We help progressive leaders of spiritual communities share hope, healing, and light online. I am also a video editor, which comes in handy with the TikTok stuff. I graduated from United Lutheran Seminary in 2019. I am a black belt and recently have been getting back into that. And so that is bringing me a lot of life lately. Enneagram 7. I think I saw that you were into the Enneagram, so you might know what that is, a 5. Awesome. And yeah, so Digi has been, it's a new endeavor, really. The past 2 years, we've been putting out a lot of free content. And so a lot of people find us through YouTube, blog posts. We are on TikTok. We put out a TikTok survival guide, just trying to help these faith leaders really get online and reach their people with messages that we believe truly matter. We are embarking into some more public ways of doing that in the spring 2022 and summer. But for now, it's been a lot of free content for everybody and then some one-on-one working with churches. How'd I do?
You did great. And that was kind of how, like I said, I did find you through TikTok and you just popped up on there. I didn't realize you had all the other things that you were doing. So you may have told us you may have gotten to this a little bit, but we know that what you do, but there has to be a beginning. So yes. Why did you focus on this? You said you were in a church and now you do this. So what was the event or the need you saw? How did you get into this?
Sure. So for those that can't see me, I am younger. I'm a millennial. I am a digital native. And so I grew up, online. I knew my friends were on AOL Instant Messenger, and I, was on all these different things as they came to life. Facebook in the beginning, that sort of thing. And I as I grew older, it became less of just like this cool thing to do and more of a way to connect with people, people I knew and loved and was growing relationships with digitally, but also new people, networking. And I wondered, why aren't the churches that I'm a part of making use of this at all? And I was part of a couple different mainline Protestant communities, throughout college. And then after college I actually was working with youth ministry right out of college. And I didn't see those churches using this amazing tool, all the amazing digital tools that are out there. I saw other churches doing it, and I knew, some of the bigger churches were doing this sort of thing, but not the ones that I was part of. So Michelle and I, who were working together at the church, we started with our own church. We started helping in the church and just saying, okay, let's talk about Facebook. Like, how do we use this effectively for ministry? And some of those conversations and trainings with our own leaders on just basics with digital ministry, they led to opportunities to help other pastors within our synod. We were an ELCA church. And so other local pastors, other local denomination groups, where we were able to just do some free trainings at the beginning and just help leaders understand this internet thing and what they can do to take steps into it. And so a couple of years ago, we said, well, we should probably be on this internet thing as a team as well. And so we started, posting slowly, and eventually, I think a year and a half ago now, we said, okay, we're going to do this every week, and have just branched out into, TikTok, Twitter, most platforms that a lot of people will find us on. And so, yeah, it really just came from seeing like, okay, I'm making friends online. I'm building relationships online. Like, the church is a relational being. Why are we not using the internet when people are spending so much time and more time every single year on it?
So as you talk to churches, I mean, one of the things that I hear people say, or at least I'm hearing it less now that they've gotten, I think that COVID was an accelerator for a lot of this stuff. But, you talked about community and building community, and, community is supposed to be in person, right? We're supposed to be face to face. We're supposed to see that. So how are you seeing churches, or how do you talk into that space of building community, real community online?
Yeah, that can be a huge struggle for folks. I think anyone kind of working in or speaking in digital ministry has heard the pushback of, community is only in person, well, ask some of your people about if they've found community online. And, I don't have any off the top of my head to share, but you just Google statistics about social media, and it is a huge percentage of people that are not only using it, not only spending time on it, but spending a lot of time on it. I think I heard the average hours on TikTok, or average time spent on TikTok, is multiple hours per day. And so, like, this is statistically where people are spending time. You ask your people where they're spending their time. They're on these platforms. As far as, is it worth it or not to engage them where they are? Absolutely, is what and it doesn't convince everybody, but it is what it is. St. Paul says, you gotta be all things to wherever people are. That's where you go. And so I understand the difficulty, especially because it's a new endeavor. And for many people, we've never done things this way. Well, the internet hasn't been this way before. I understand that's a huge challenge, but at the same time, people are building community already online. It's just a matter of learning how the tools work, how the platforms work, to dive into that as well. Like, it doesn't have to be, and we'll talk more about that a little later, I think, but some of the changes I think that need to be made aren't like monumental shifts necessarily. It's just, learning the one or two things that work for your people, and then really diving into that. And your youth group too, for the youth leaders listening. Like, some churches don't have a lot of youth these days. Okay, the ones that you do have, where are they spending time online? Can you pour into that space and learn from them even how they want to see community fostered in that space, rather than say like, oh, I found this cool thing online, like we should try it, and like pushing something that isn't maybe organically going to work.
Yeah. I am a big fan of the Carey Nieuwhof podcast, leadership podcast. And he said, if you were in your town and you knew that 70% of your congregation was in a park, every Saturday, would you not go to that park? Or would you just say, oh, they're not in my church, I'm not going to worry about them? And with an analogy toward your online presence and where you are.
Exactly. And I feel like certainly not everybody, well, such a large percentage of people are on, social media. So not everybody going on social media all the time is like, depressed and lonely and anxious, but we have such, an increase in these emotions, these experiences, this negativity for people that when they're feeling isolated and they're just scrolling on the internet, that's one of the biggest things that drives Michelle and I is the people that are online a lot of the times, sometimes the most, need the messages of hope, healing, and light that we believe faith leaders have to offer the most, and are looking for something to kind of fill a void. So
you saw that need in your church. You saw that need in other churches. We've had, a couple of years of really a forced entrance into that. So maybe through COVID or just in the past several years, how are churches doing? How are you finding that churches are, maybe some good things, and then maybe some just opportunities that you see that are just widely missed that we may not see that you could speak into?
Yes, where to start? So, as I said before, sometimes some of the most effective ways I think to reach people are simple things, and so simply having it really does sound so simple, but having your website functional and clear. And I know that seems so basic, but a lot of listeners, I'll bet, if they go on their church website, or if they have a youth page, they'll be like, oh dang, we still have that thing from October up, or we started this new thing and it's not even on there, because we're so involved in in the ministry and with the people, and that's great, but we have to make sure that we're communicating these things clearly online. And so whenever I come across folks that have things updated and have clear ways of connecting from, oh, I found you on TikTok, to now we can engage in ministry in some way, or I can reach out to you in some way, any kind of clear pathways. I always celebrate that. One of the biggest things, and I think this will maybe be a big thing for a while, but as something that could be worked on for churches, I think, is using social media just to announce things. I mean, lots of people guilty of that, and it's hard because you want to tell people about these things that you're spending so much time and energy and love in creating for them, and I get that. But the platforms that are out there, it's not a proper use of them to just use them as a billboard. That's not why they're there. They're there to try to use the features to actually engage people right there. How can we not just tell people about these things that we're doing, but actually do things with them in these digital spaces? I could probably keep talking about these listing things for a while, but any feedback around that?
Yeah. Well, and I would encourage listeners, go check out your spaces, your TikTok, your Instagram, things like that, because that's where I got a lot of these questions and thoughts from, all things that have been in my head for a long time. And so I'm coming from the youth ministry world, where I was for 25 years. I was there while everything came up. I mean, I remember when we first got cable internet at one church, and you could just click on a button and the internet was there, and you didn't have to wait for the all that stuff. And so, I've been through where you are a digital native. I'm what, a digital hybrid, or I don't know what the word is, but I remember the analog life and digital life, which I think there's some, definitely things I see with that. So I'm coming into this space where, doing youth ministry and being now a pastor who has a church, who has a youth ministry and a children's ministry and those things. Just seeing all of those opportunities, and then also thinking, wow, I double check my Instagram, my Facebook, my webpage, because I think that's important by being clear and those pathways. So, and this is just something I've been curious about, because I see the connection. Okay, Instagram, there's a web, and it's going to go to people who are following me, right? Facebook is pretty much going to pull from those people who are in my area. But TikTok doesn't.
No,
TikTok
No, I can talk about that.
So why would I, as a pastor, or as a youth director, or as somebody who's running that, go into TikTok? Because I mean, I may have a few people in my church who know about it, but it's really going like everywhere, and the algorithms seem like they are all messed up and everything. So tell us, I mean, I do want, because it's the newest one, I do think people are probably the most hesitant to jump in. So why should they jump in to that? And how would you encourage them to do that?
Yes. Okay. I'm going to rewind and then I'm going to go forward. So let's start with just the Facebook and Instagram comment that you made there. So yes, Facebook, you make a post, it's going to go to the people that are, liking, following your page, the ones that have decided I would like to follow this church and see what they post. Or if anyone shares, something, if you make shareable content, that's another way to kind of get it in front of people that aren't following your page. Instagram, yes, same kind of deal, unless you're using hashtags. And that's another way to kind of invite other people in. And, there's a lot of people go different ways on hashtags, like, oh, they're not really worth it. Yes, they're really important. Sometimes I'm like, oh, like, is this really doing anything? But you can check that in analytics of Instagram. And I'm always surprised how many, it'll tell you how much reach your post received from the hashtags you use. It won't tell you which hashtags are doing the best unless you pay for another add-on. But to me, that's good confirmation that that's helpful. Instagram recently came out with Reels, which is very similar to TikTok. And so Reels, TikTok, and YouTube Shorts now too have this algorithm that is not just who's following you. It is, based in the digisphere. I don't know how they mathematically decide someone is going to be interested in what you are posting, probably based on hashtags, based on other followers, based on your content, based on your caption. But it will kind of feed this video that you put out there, Reels, Instagram, or Reels, TikTok, and YouTube Shorts. They're all short form videos generally, although they just started 10-minute videos now. Yeah, what is that? And if it does well with the set of users that they send it to, they're going to keep sending it out there to more and more users. So sometimes you'll even I've experienced like this, oh, we're getting a little bit of traction. Oh, wow, we're getting like a lot of traction. Like there'll be like these different bumps of popularity to the videos. And so why would you do this as a leader? Good question. First of all, I think you made a comment that it is not necessarily location oriented, but I've heard that that is a piece of the algorithm. So people, and I've even gotten like, not necessarily like where I live, but like Northeast USA type of related stuff. Like, oh, you might be interested in hiking these mountains. It's like, oh yes, I would be interested in hiking these mountains. How did you know? Like I'm not necessarily getting things across the country. So it definitely has a factor of that. I have heard other people say that, it can be as location oriented as like small towns oriented. So people in your town might get your TikToks more likely. So that is a little bit of possibility for sharing what you're doing with people in your locale. But a big thing also is just, do you want to reach anyone that might never come physically to your community? And that's a big question. And that's also a question of how much time you want to give to people that are going to be part of your physical in-person community versus how much of your ministry is a ministry to anybody that comes across it, which is a big question and kind of a scary question, and probably something most people that signed up for seminary didn't really anticipate thinking about at this point. And I would also estimate that more than just, one or two folks in a lot of congregations are using TikTok, just with how much it's grown in the past few years. And the demographic has grown in the past few years. It's not just kids anymore. It's not even just millennials at this point. People of all ages are not only consuming TikTok content, but creating TikTok content. And I follow all sorts of ages and niches. Like it's very niche oriented as far as the people that want your video are probably going to stumble across it at some point.
Yeah. Well, I noticed that with, Facebook when it first came out was just the college students because it was only you could do that. Snapchat, of course, had that younger kind of following. Twitter was really the one that was adults first and kind of filtered down. And maybe it was just COVID with everybody being home with nothing to do or whatever. But TikTok definitely is. I watch some lady who cleans cast iron skillets, and I have people who fish, and I have kids doing this, and dogs and cat. Like you have the whole wide range. And so I'm gonna stick with TikTok for a little bit. So cool. How do you, if you are a church, what do you put on TikTok? How do you use it? What's the best way to make a video for that?
Oh boy, we could really talk about this for a long time.
And I know you have like a short. You said you have do you have a TikTok for churches video or a guide? Or?
We have a couple videos on our YouTube channel. We do have a TikTok survival guide that has like 30 hooks for church leaders with examples of what that could. So like a hook would be like the first few seconds of your video. Some people say if you don't capture attention in the first like 3 seconds of your video, that people are just going to swipe. Yep, and exactly, just right on by. And so making sure you're really engaging in the beginning is huge. A lot of church leaders that I come across will just be like, oh, okay, so today I talked about this in my sermon. No one's giving you the time of day. You need to know what you're doing and plan for that speed. We also have, examples for who you could follow if you're looking for faith leaders on TikTok, and TikTok examples that are linked for like, hey, do this trend. Trends are huge on TikTok. Not necessarily your whole feed, or they shouldn't necessarily be your whole feed if you're engaging in trends, because sometimes they're, just silly songs that you're maybe doing a specific move to. If it doesn't have to be a dance, but it could be some kind of physical movement that goes with the trend, or the video is built around the trend. But the idea is that you take the trend and you fit it to what you're doing. So, I mean, there are a ton of youth groups on TikTok. I do want to give a plug to Brandy Jones on Instagram, who just posted like 15 student ministries on TikTok, posted just a post listing them. And I was like, oh, wow, that's a great resource and maybe something that you'd be interested in following along with. But yes, so what are you doing TikTok? Well, if you are a youth leader, ask your youth, first of all, because they're going to know it so much better. They're going to have a lot of fun with it as well. And we've seen that over and over with the youth groups on TikTok, playing into the trends, but also educate. Like whatever you are writing your lesson plan on, or if you've got like a series for the next few months, like this is our youth group focus for 6 months or for the year. Think of how you can package some of these teachings into short blips. And honestly, even though TikTok is now like, oh, I'm going to be YouTube and expand to 10 minutes, I don't think you necessarily need to be speaking for 10 minutes on TikTok. The shortest videos tend to do the best anyway, 15 to 20 seconds, but don't be afraid to go into that minute category if you have that ability, or even up to 3 minutes. Some people have it, some people don't. And tell people what you're teaching with the youth already, what you're already learning about as you go through that series, or as you go through that study over the next few months. Because do you know how many people out there have no idea, like some of the basics of faith that you may be teaching, and might need that kind of like love and light and education along the way? That kind of stuff does extremely well on TikTok. So you've kind of got this balance between humor, levity, fun, but also like, hey, by the way, your life matters. You're loved. Here's some things I can tell you about that.
Yep. Well, so I'm a pastor and was a youth leader, and so one of the things I struggle with is do I do a church or a youth group TikTok, or do I do my own? And if I do my own, like one of the things I'm thinking about right now is, so I play piano and do worship, all of that. I do speaking. I love dad jokes. I mean, all these things. And I know that some channels are just this, and that it's just this one thing, and some are kind of a mix. So what would you suggest either to me or another youth leader who wants to do it by themselves, not just their church, which I think is good, and we give opportunity to kind of give you a taste of who that person is. Mm-hmm. So what would you suggest for us? How would you coach me to use TikTok as a pastor or a youth leader?
Sure. I would separate what you're doing as far as a youth group TikTok and as far as a you TikTok, kind of like your public theologian persona, your public voice, because those are going to be different things. If you move on from that community, you want to make sure that that community still has, their own TikTok, that they can continue to develop their voice. Having a church, having a youth group TikTok allows other people to like lead different things. So maybe you show up sometimes on that and you're saying, hey, this week we learned about this, and I'm going to kind of preach to you a little bit, or I'm going to share with you a little bit what impact that has had on our lives. But then the next week, one of your youth members is helping organize a couple like fun TikToks or even educational TikToks, whatever. You can have a bunch of different voices and they can still kind of fall under this youth related TikTok account, that if other people are interested in, well, oh, I like what he has to say, or, oh, I don't really get out to youth group anymore, but I find, following along with their adventures, like kind of fulfilling, and I like learning along with them. That's one thing. For yourself, if your goal is to like blow up on your dad jokes, like, then sure, just make a dad joke TikTok. That's fine. That could be it. But if you're just sharing your life and sharing, some humorous things along the way, maybe some serious things along the way, I don't think you have to not say anything about youth ministry there either. Like, I think that's fine to have that crossover, but having your own voice there and developing like, hey, I do this podcast and this is really important to me and I'm learning some things here. But I also, all the other things you listed, my dog's really funny, and if people want to follow along and watch what they're up to lately, because like I'd follow both of those accounts, honestly, but they would be different. And I think it would confuse the algorithm to try to do both of those things if you tried to do everything like under your own account.
It'd probably mess up the church one more than it would mess up yours, because yours is random, but it would mess up the what you're trying to do with your church or what you're trying to do with your youth group if you try to put everything in there.
And I think there are maybe some other leaders. There's probably a lot of youth leaders, and I'm thinking of just general faith leaders that we follow and connect with online that would follow you just because, I'm a faith leader and I've been thinking about TikTok, but I'm kind of scared to get on TikTok. But this guy, he's telling his dad jokes and he's, sharing his youth group, and I want to learn from him and I want to connect. It's just like, it's very similar to Facebook in that sort of way. Like, you follow or connect with, or Twitter, I guess it's more like you follow and connect with folks, even if you don't necessarily know them in person.
Yeah.
And so, I would say keep them separate.
So we have a lot of listeners who are part-time, volunteer. They don't have at their church a social media person or a creative content leader or a communications. Budgets, ton of volunteers. So how do you encourage them? And this is not just TikTok, but social media in general. If you have a youth leader who works and does this, how do you encourage them? And what would you tell them as far as getting social media? Maybe if you have some specific, like you would choose this over this or anything like that. How would you coach somebody like that?
Sure. Okay. We got like 3 different things coming to mind.
I know. My questions are very varied, so I'll just let you take it wherever you're going.
No, it's good. So first thought is that I think people can sometimes get overwhelmed with digital ministry. It makes sense, especially if you're not involved in it at all. And then all of a sudden someone's saying, hey, here's this whole separate world where there are people, and like try to figure out how to do all your things in this separate space. That's a lot. And so we always say digital ministry is ministry, not necessarily trying to add it on top or just like sprinkle and see how much we can fit onto what we're already doing. I think it takes a real shift in what you're doing overall in your ministry and considering, okay, are there any things that I'm putting time into that are just, maybe not worth my time? They're not very effective, that can kind of either die out or take a break while I dive into this and get to know this new way of doing ministry, because it is going to take time. Like there's no way that you're going into digital ministry and it's just like this kind of side thing. This is a part of people. And so it really needs to be a part of your time each and every week. So if there are things to let go of, that would be kind of my first comment, and really looking at where your time is being spent and how you can navigate that. Second, as far as like where to go, I would certainly talk to your group, like we talked about, because you don't want to be pushing something that's not going to work for them, that they're not interested in. And I would recommend, if you are limited on time, finances, all of that, really focus in on just like one, maybe two spaces that you know your people are already on, and we're gonna like laser focus for like 3 or 4 months and just see where this goes, even if it's, you know, totally a new endeavor and you have to learn everything. Just give it that time and be consistent with it. So maybe it is TikTok. Maybe it's like, okay, our youth really like TikTok. I'm going to learn about TikTok. I'm going to make TikToks with them. We're going to try to figure out how we can connect with other youth, like have those conversations of, okay, we've got youth following us, but how do we, you know, engage them beyond these TikToks? But it might not be TikTok. It might be engaging. I don't know. Some communities, youth communities, are still on Instagram, and some are like, that's old now. You know, things are moving quickly. If it's texting, and that becomes a digital way of communication, and you have, you know, a blessing from your community to actually do that, because there's, you know, boundaries involved there. Wherever it is, I would kind of double down in that space. If you are not, if you don't have like a public witness of your youth group at all, like there's no social media accounts going on, you're not really sharing much of what's happening, I think a nice place to start, I don't want to say easy, because I don't want to just say that it's nothing on top of what you're already doing, but a maybe easier place to start could be sharing more behind the scenes content. That's a big thing that we encourage all types of leaders to do when they're trying to move from that, like, oh, we just post announcements lifestyle or digital ministry presence, to we want to do some other things. What's that going to look like? So behind the scenes content could be anything from like pictures of like just you planning for things, or getting, you know, going about your day. It could be videos probably better, growing method of communication, video check-ins at youth group, before youth group, after youth group, not just like pulling out our camera and doing the hi type of thing that we talked about with TikTok. Like, you do want to kind of have an idea of where you're going to be going with it. But it's such a great way for people that aren't there physically to connect and feel a little more a part of it, and for them to get to know your face. Like, as much as we're like, nobody wants to see me, like, I don't know, getting out the dodgeballs. I don't know why that came to mind. But like, you know, no one wants to see like the 3 youth that came early to help stack or to help get out the chairs, do that sort of thing. No, they do. They're going to connect with that, and they're going to kind of get to know you. And maybe that's going to even push someone into being comfortable enough to say, oh, I could go help with the setup, or like, they seem okay. They seem kind of fun. It seems like a light environment. That's one example.
Yeah. We had a meeting with our, talking about worship and about online. We have an online service, but we did what a lot of churches do. We don't have 2 cameras. We set up a camera, you know, and really one of the comments that we got back, and this wasn't from youth, this was from some of our older group that watched on Facebook. And they said, it's great that we see the speakers. It's great that we see the music. It's great that we hear that. It sounds great, but we don't know that anybody else is there. We don't see anybody else's faces. And so it got us thinking of like, you know, how can we help someone feel like they are actually there as opposed to just watching the show? I felt kind of bad because I was like, you know, these are things I talked about before I got here. I was like, we don't need to do this. And then it gets easy, and it gets like, hey, well, at least we can do this. Mm-hmm. And you forget about the other things that make it even better. Putting a camera, doing a live broadcast from the lobby before the service starts.
Exactly. That would be huge.
You know, any of those type things that help bring people into this. And that's what it does when you do the, hey, I'm here at the house, or I'm doing whatever. It brings people into that space where you are, and they're going to see your face. I mean, I think probably what most people are more afraid of is not other people seeing their face, but me seeing my face.
Yeah.
And it's what I look like. So I don't know why we do that, but we've been doing a series talking about fear. Bob Goff does, and talking about fear and stepping out and doing things you're afraid of. And I know for me, I know for many people, it's like, I'll put the camera that way. I'll video something else, but I don't want to video myself in doing that. And so any way you help people to get past that, or just get over it and do it?
As far as videotaping yourself? As
far as having the comfort to go, yes, I can be on camera. I'm 46. Yes, I can be on TikTok.
Sure.
Not everybody's just going to laugh at me whenever I do something because that's the fear, right? We go back to high school and giving a speech in high school. We go back to that fear of nobody's going to like me. Everybody's going to hate me.
Right.
That. So I know this, do you have any ways you encourage, or just say, go do it and suck it up?
That is part of it because, with anything, the more you do it, the easier it becomes, as we're learning new skills in that way. And I was actually reflecting on this recently. We have like a video module, this course we've been working on. And first video, I look back at our first video on YouTube and I say, I remember that video. Like, I remember just being like, oh my goodness, like, what am I doing? Like, people are going to look at me funny. And this was only less than 2 years ago. And I'm not like shy. I'm okay being in front of people and with people, but it was new. It was scary. And I remember we recorded it and we didn't even put it up for like 5 months or something because we were like, I was just like, oh my gosh, when I put it out there, then it's out there. You lose a sense of control. At this point, as you said, I'm on TikTok a couple times a week, a couple times a day sometimes. So I can speak from my own experience that it does get easier. I think that remembering the value that you're bringing to people. And so, like you said, with the live check-ins before worship, if you, every time you do that, you just think about the person that said that comment of like, oh, like, it's really nice, but like, I miss the people. Like, I miss connecting with them. If you think about like, oh my goodness, I have the opportunity right now to bring them in here. And like, I have to look at myself in this, reflection or whatever, or I'm going to see it on Facebook later and I'm going to think, oh my goodness, but what's the trade-off? I'm bringing this to not only those people, but potentially other people that have, no connection with my community or limited connection with my community, and bringing them in. Yeah. Sometimes you need to just like not watch the videos if you're just really not feeling it. But I think that you're going to be surprised or I think those that are nervous about this will be surprised with the amount of positive feedback that they're going to get. And I would say, try to let that drive you when you do get it. Like, don't let go of those comments. Maybe like, so I know some people, when they get positive feedback, they'll like take a screenshot of it or something and try to save it in a folder just so they can remember like, oh, remember that one person that said, I needed this message today. Thank you so much. And you're just like, oh, that gave me enough energy to keep doing this a couple more weeks, because it does make a difference, even if we have to get over our goofy faces.
So, or one of the questions that I've had is taking your message. So you take your sermon. Yes. So I do a 15, 20-minute message on Sunday mornings. Mm-hmm. I know that youth leaders will do a 15 or 20-minute message on Wednesday night or wherever that is. And you've got this bulk of content. Mm-hmm. So what are the ways that I can use that in other things? How do I break that up and use that in other ways?
Sure. There are a lot of options. Let's just do a couple. But first, if you want to put the long form content up there, YouTube is where I would suggest doing that. I would suggest cutting as closely as possible to the beginning and the end. So you're not, because the same with TikTok, how we said, okay, you can't just stare at the camera and go, for the first 3 seconds because they're going to swipe on by. YouTube, you've got like maybe 5 seconds. Okay. You need to start. Some people will be like, oh, well, we'll just set the camera up and then I'll walk up front and do some announcements and No, try to start right where you start. That's huge. I just made a TikTok about this, but titling your YouTube videos, not the date, is such a huge like little thing. Again, it's these little tweaks we can make that completely change the experience for someone. If I go on your YouTube channel and I just see like March 12th, March 4th, February, whatever, I'm like, okay, so maybe this is just for his people. Maybe this is just for his kids to reference, or I don't know why I'm here. But if I see, oh, this is like a thought-provoking question or the topic at hand, I might be like, oh, I'm interested in this topic over this topic. And I might start, watching these videos and wanting to engage with them more. that's important for long form content. Short form, there's so much potential, and I think so much untapped potential, especially by some more mainline denominations, for sharing sermon clips on TikTok. And I think it was St. Luke's Indie on TikTok that we a couple weeks ago duetted or stitched one of their videos because it had 60 or 70,000 views and like tons of likes, and it was literally, they were just filming their pastor preaching and they took a clip, and it was, I don't know, a minute long, maybe 30 seconds long, but it was an impactful section, and they were filming it and they clipped it, and it didn't take up the whole, it didn't it wasn't a vertical or horizontal video just with black bars on the top and bottom. I would suggest zooming in if you can, so it does kind of take up the full vertical screen like TikTok users are used to.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was engaging. I would put captions on your videos because sometimes people don't have the volume on. TikTok makes that easy, or you can put them on yourself if you have a way to do that. There are a couple apps that will do it for you. Just make sure that double check the spelling. I don't know if you saw my commentary.
I saw that one, yeah.
Yeah, that happens from time to time. But these little clips, and try to make them clips. We say this with sermon quotes as well. Like if you're making a graphic and you're posting it on Facebook and Instagram, try to make it a quote or a section that they don't have to hear the whole sermon to know where you're going with this or know what you're talking about. Because it's easy to say oh, everyone that heard this sermon is going to remember this impactful part, where I had the punchline or whatever, and everything came together. But think about the people on TikTok as if they may never watch the rest of your sermon, and they're just scrolling by, and TikTok said, this person, I think they could use this little bit of light today, and your clip came. So what other questions do you have on that, if you have any? Because I want to make sure I answer that.
No, I mean, one of the other things was, and this is just for me thinking, is if I take a clip and it's, a minute and a half or whatever like that, do I need to go through and cut out? Because I know TikTok is very, very fast. I see that's one of the things about TikTok videos is there's very little space. There's very little time. During that, you would cut it. So how would you just practically kind of take a clip for a little bit and put that out? Is there a time for that you would that you would say, hey, you need to stay a minute? I think a minute because you can go Instagram. It translates well. So with that, so cutting and how are you actually cutting those?
Sure. So as far as timing, like I said, 20 to 30 is actually even better. Sometimes it doesn't work in that amount of time. That's okay. If it goes to a minute and a half is probably actually pushing it as far as these sort of things. The shorter, the better. If it works, if it doesn't work, a minute is fine. I typically, I am a video editor. I do will edit outside of TikTok. The other nice thing about that is if you have another app that you use for captions, which there's one called Captions. I'm trying to think of, I know maybe InShot is one some people have used for clipping and captioning. I'm not too familiar with that one. But the other benefit to doing some stuff outside of the app is, like you said, repurposing. So if I have a video and it's ready to go on TikTok and it has captions and it's cut to my liking, I can upload it on all these platforms and that's it. But if I edit it in TikTok and I put the TikTok captions on, when I download it, I won't necessarily have, all the nice stuff that I just did. You asked about clipping and keeping it fast. Honestly, I wouldn't stress too much about that. If you feel like it's a really, if there's something in the middle that really shouldn't be there, or there's a big pause and it's really going to throw people off, you could consider it. To me, that sounds like even more an up level, more work. If you have the energy and time and you are all in on TikTok and that's the only focus that you're doing right now for social media, try it. It's always worth trying things like that and seeing if you notice a difference. Do people react better and interact with these videos better than when I don't do that? But if you're not seeing a substantial difference there when you do try it, don't stress yourself out too much. If there's a pause and you're maybe they're going to lose focus, you could also have an emoji or a GIF or some text pop up, wait for it. You can do those things in the app or on your editing program, these these snappy, edits to try to keep people intrigued long enough to make it to the end of your video.
Yeah. So you've obviously watched a bunch of different churches doing this. What are just some of your things that you're like, hey, that's awesome. They did that well. That's great. Like some of the examples to inspire us to do more things.
As far as sermon video specifically, or just short form video?
I would say just as churches are using TikTok or Instagram or those things, like what are really TikTok is where we've been focusing. So as churches have been using that, what are some of the great things that you've seen that you would help us to be like, hey, we can do that?
Captions. I mean, there's some things that I've mentioned already. The captions are huge. Again, this might be like a next level type of thing, but if you are preaching a sermon and you're like moving around and you know how to do this, to track where you're going in the video is huge, because you're not just like, oh, I'm off screen a little bit and then I'm over here. Yeah, exactly. It happens, but that's a next level thing. It's one of those things, again, you try it, see if it makes a difference. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But I like that, because I feel like there was some intention in that and I'm following along with them. Not being afraid to try out the trends, I think, is huge. And sometimes the trends can like make the church leaders, whether they're volunteer or staff or whatever, like be a little vulnerable in it too. Like you're showing who you are as a person beyond just like, I'm the pastor, I preach the sermon, here's my sermon. This is you showing up on TikTok now, connected to your church, and you're keeping it appropriate. You're thinking of your boundaries and all that good stuff, but you're showing a little bit of what it looks like to be in that position in the community. Yeah. That's another thing I love to see. I'm just like, oh wow, look what they did. Like, because people on TikTok, authenticity is so huge on TikTok. Like people are gonna smell it in a second if you're just like trying to be fake or put on a show. So just kind of show up and be you, and know that that's enough. And honestly, it's probably even better than whatever you thought would be better than that. Yeah.
I had some kids who were last night. They were doing a TikTok outside, and I actually filmed them from the inside. They were doing it from the outside, so I showed it to them, and it was funny because I was like, "Hey, can I put this up?" They're like, "Sure." She was here, let me see it, and she like in a split second had it synced up and everything, and I was like,
"Yes,
yeah, I've got a lot to learn." That is an encouragement. Like, learn from your students, whether you're a pastor, or a student pastor, or whatever it is. I mean, learn from them and let them create content and do that. But I put that. I was looking at that, and they said, "Do you want to do one?" And I was like, "I can't right now." And I was like, "That was an opportunity missed."
Yes.
Like, even if I look goofy and dumb and I can't move and I can't dance because I can't dance, it still was an opportunity missed to participate, because it would have been something with my students who are in the church. It would have been something that they would remember even outside of TikTok. And it'd be something that would last forever. And I would probably get razzed on a little bit and made fun of, but it shows you that you are. I mean, I do think it's important that you're showing that you're not just the pastor or the youth pastor or the church secretary or whatever it is, that you are a real person who has fun and posts things and hangs out and is entering their space and is welcome in their space.
Yeah, I'm going to bet that they're going to be willing to do that next week when they see you too, So I don't think the opportunity is totally lost on you. But I think it was a couple of days ago, someone posting on TikTok or Twitter asking for ideas for what to have youth do with some folks. I think they were maybe hanging out after worship for fellowship, and they wanted to try to like bridge the gap with some of these older members and youth folks. And I was like, have the kids think of a TikTok that like they could involve these people in. And I think that's a huge thing too, is like, just the kids know this so well, the youth know this so well, they can educate the people around them who might have no idea what TikTok is, or just like how to engage it at all, and feel like empowered in that oh my goodness, I'm actually doing something for my church here just by like kind of having fun. But it's a relational building activity, getting the word out there about what's going on. It's like all good things.
Yeah. Well, we could talk for hours and hours, and I probably will contact you later at some point and go, hey, just for me having some questions myself. Is there anything that you're in this space, you write about it, you talk about it, you post about it. And you also may be looking ahead. So, at one point TikTok didn't exist. At one point Snapchat didn't exist, but it was on there. What do you see that's out there, or what are some opportunities you think that we may have in the future?
Yeah. Okay. don't run away from the computer here when I say this, but the whole like VR church thing or virtual reality metaverse concept. So I think I first brought this up towards the end of last year when we were looking towards 2022, and I was kind of poking around with like statistics and just what are marketers looking at, what are other folks looking at as what's to come, social media folks, and I saw this, metaverse stuff, virtual reality stuff, and I was like, oh, I've played some games on VR. Like, yeah, that sounds reasonable. It's coming, and we kind of talked about like, oh, this is gonna come. Like, keep an eye out, whatever. In the past few weeks, I've been totally enlightened by the ways it's already happening, like on a larger scale, like people going to church in their headsets. And it kind of continues to blow my mind. I still don't think it's something like the everyday, youth pastor or pastor needs to be like running to the store to get their headset and like, quick, get our online, our metaverse or whatever church going on. But what an amazing tool that like I'm still learning about. I'm no expert on this, but I was a part of a webinar, a conference experience a couple weeks ago, and they talk about how there's rooms in the metaverse, worlds just for like youth group activities, like a lot of like very game oriented spaces that you can keep secure just for your youth. And I was like, oh my goodness, like when I was in youth group, if we had this kind of thing, it would have been like madness. Like you do the fun stuff in person too, you do the physical activities in person, but it's just like this new thing that I really think folks need to not only keep an eye on, but like not run away in terror screaming about necessarily. There's pros and cons for sure, but just keep an eye on the space.
Yeah. And I mean, that's growing up doing youth ministry as each of the social media platforms came about. I saw that. I saw Snapchat. I saw Snapchat. And it was like, keep it a 10-foot pole and don't do this. And all of a sudden it was like, okay. And then I saw, whether that's, TikTok or Instagram and I saw parents' reaction. I saw churches' reaction of pushing it away. But there was a few churches who were like, no, this is going to be something.
Right.
So how do you, is there any ways you can tell, because there will be some people who it's not new, but it's new to them. So any ways that you can help a youth pastor or a pastor kind of help their congregation or their elder board or however your church is set up, go, no, this is a space we need to be in. No, it's not completely secure. No, it's not completely safe. Nothing is. But our students are there. Our people are there. We need to be there. So any tips you could give somebody to talk about that?
Are you specifically thinking the virtual reality comment or just social media? Or I
think virtuality is in the future for that.
Yes.
But I think there's also some churches that have never done Snapchat or Twitter or anything like that. And they've got to convince somebody, yes, we need to have a church account for this.
Yeah, I think really being familiar about, well, first of all, what are you asking or what are you kind of saying? What are you suggesting to them? Being clear and making sure you know the platform enough yourself so you can say like, here's how people use it. Maybe even bringing in some examples, like here's some churches that are using it well and how it's helping them connect with their people and beyond their people. I think sometimes that could even speak loudly for folks that are a little hesitant to say like, hey, this TikTok thing, it can reach people locally and we can tell our folks about it so they follow us, but there's a lot of potential for reach beyond our walls. What do we think about growing in a new way? Like, yeah, we want to grow in person, I'm sure, but what do you think about growing in this new way, this new space? I think it's good also to remember the control that you do have as an account leader. So to be really informed about that and even share like, hey, if we get a comment that feels really bad, like icky or just weird, we can delete that, we still have that power. Here's some of the security things we can put in place or other churches have put in place. I think that could speak loudly. Certainly some people will still be like, no, I hate it. No, never. But you can only do so much.
And it is more familiar, especially something like TikTok has broadened the reach. All COVID, everybody shut down, kind of opened people's eyes to what online ministry could be. And I think we're now trying to figure out, okay, was that just an interruption or was that a disruption? Is that just a blip in the road or do we keep it? I don't believe it is just a blip in the road. It is here to stay. And it's been interesting to see like a lot of the people who have pushed to say, hey, are we going to keep doing this? Are even some of our older groups.
Nice.
Or it's, because they're like, hey, if I feel bad in the morning, I can at least get some interaction. Yes. I can at least attend church somehow. It may not be 100%, but I can, or the mom who wakes up and the kids are just throwing a fit. Right. And she's like, we can't make it today, but I can still log on or
something.
One and two, like you have your kids, it became the big debate. Or why are we doing soccer practice on Wednesday night? And why do we have games all weekend, for the games? Well, they can still be connected in some way.
Right.
And whether that's watching church as it happens, or that is watching the TikTok clip of the deal or the YouTube clip, or interacting in those ways. And like I said, we could go millions of hours on this. And I hope to have you back and talk again at some point.
Sure.
With more stuff. But any final thoughts, any encouragement that you have for youth leaders? And then you also have something special to tell us about after that. So just anything closing out that we didn't get to that you have a thought on?
No, I think when you talked about seeing these changes over time with different platforms coming to age, and I think not being afraid to try it and to fail and to fall like flat on your face has to be part of it. Showing up on videos, the first few times, maybe the first few months, you're going to just be like, what am I doing? But it's going to get better. And that's how you learn. That's how you learn to improve what you're doing and how you learn to build your confidence along the way. Yeah. So I try to say that almost every time I'm on a podcast, just like part of this whole digital ministry thing is probably failure. It's okay. We're all in this together and trying to figure it out.
Yeah. And that's important. We are all in this together. A lot of times when these things come out, it is everybody learning at one time, and a big church doesn't have a monopoly on anything. Like that's the great thing about digital stuff is, most of the stuff can be done with your iPhone,
exactly.
or whatever you use, and edited and posted all. That's how this works. It's not $1 million deal. So you had something you wanted to share with us. And so I'll let you talk about that. And then I want you to give us all the ways that we can get in touch with you.
Sure. Yes. Okay. So I actually have a discount specifically for your listeners, and I had to make sure I spelled Russell right when we set it up. So I did. So we have a new course, I mentioned earlier, digital communications review course. We've been doing digital communications reviews for churches for a couple months now, just kind of one-on-one with them, but we wanted to be able to offer it at a broader level. And so what it is it's a walkthrough of your website and all the things you need, like we talked about, to keep things clear, to keep things effective. It's social media, it's video, it's direct communication, branding, identity, content creation. There's a lot in there. Russell with 2 L's, 75. That'll give you $75 off if they're interested. We have a pretty good discount running right now, but I'm not sure if it'll be around still when they get to it. So that's fine. This discount code Russell75 will last for a couple months. But we also have a lot of free stuff out there. And so segue to those opportunities would be following us at Digivangelism on any platform, pretty much. And every Tuesday morning, we come out with a new free YouTube video and blog post. So you can, subscribe on YouTube, or our email list will send those reminders out every Tuesday, just so you're kind of in the loop as we share these new things. But also I'm very active, like you said, on TikTok and Instagram. So I love to connect with people on there, and it was fun.
Awesome. And we will put links. If you can send us any other links you want, I'll pull the ones from this that I hear. But any links and any ones to TikTok videos or anything that you're like, hey, we kind of talked about this.
Okay.
So, and you are listening to this, I encourage you to go follow Digivangelism. Like she said, it's on everything that you can think of. I think possibly, I don't know if you have your VR space set up yet, but, but so much to learn, so much more than we could ever cover in 1 hour. So Sammy, I thank you for joining us, and thank you for this content and all that you do to help push churches and lead churches into digital ministry.
Yeah, my pleasure. It's been really great talking to you. So thank you, Russell.
Thank you so much.
Hey, thanks everyone for joining us today. We hope you were encouraged and inspired by this week's episode, and that you found tools that you can use as you pour into the lives of your students.
Yes, as always, if you found this helpful, if you learned something from this that you can use in your ministry, we would ask that you leave a comment, leave a rating wherever you're listening to us on. Also, maybe you could share this on social media with somebody who you think would benefit from this conversation. Tag them and then tag us at Talk Student Men on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. You can also support us by buying some of our t-shirts and supporting us in that way, or even making a donation to support the podcast financially. So, Brent, you have next week's episode. What is coming up? What's in store? Tell us about your conversation.
Yeah, so next week I sit down with a friend of mine, Lennon Noland, and he is a pastor now, but he's been involved in different kinds of ministry throughout his career. And he sits down to talk with us about marriage in ministry. And now, me being married, Russell, you being married for a while, marriage is a pretty normal thing when it comes to getting older, but there are some tips and tricks about how to navigate marriage in a healthy way while doing ministry, and not allowing ministry to be overbearing or being a burden to your spouse or the family that you have. And so it's a great conversation. I can't wait for y'all to hear it next week.
That does sound like it'll be great. And I encourage you, even if you are not married right now, if you're single, but you think that may be in your future, be sure and check this out. Get that foundation and those ideas and thoughts now. So, well, guys, thanks again for listening. Just a reminder, go to studentministryconversations.org for show notes and links from this episode. Just search for this week's episode number in the search bar. There's also other posts and articles that we are beginning to put on there more and more as well. Thanks again for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you next week.